And here we go. Now, if you guys have seen a few random races before, you know that the beginning can be a bit different depending on what type of mode they are playing, as they did revamp a lot of new stuff in the randomizers in version 25. One of them that we're seeing right now in this new standard, you will see shortly, they will talk to Uncle and get a weapon. There's 7 different weapons they can get from him, and today it's going to be Cane of Burna. How about you talk us through it, Estragon?
Yeah, Burna is going to be exciting. Not necessarily everybody's favorite option, because it does use a lot of magic. 1/8 of your magic bar, I think, just to activate. And so it makes it kind of hard to farm up bombs, which is one of the things the players are going to want to do during this opening escape.
Yeah, it's one of the not necessarily harder, but more trickier weapons to use, as you do need to know the range of the rod and how the damage with it works. But it is still a very comfortable item compared to like using bombs at the beginning.
Yeah, I think bombs are most players' nightmare scenario. So compared to that, this is at least pretty consistent.
Now, considering that the Cane of Burna is, let's say, not that useful weapon overall in Seeds, well, we won't see much use of it apart from this escape here, I believe. And now they just found the Ether Medallion, which could be used later on, depending on if Meyer or Turok are required.
Yeah, we haven't seen a map check yet of Light World. Once we get to Dark World, that's when we'll get the real excited going.
Now they can still find a few other items inside of Castle here. It is required to go through. In standard mode, you really do have to go rescue Zelda each and every time you do your seed, but that's part of the fun too, because you get to get a weapon every seed while talking to Uncle, and you go through the castle escape, including the sewers in the back, which will require a bomb if you do want the 3 items that are hidden in one of the side rooms over there. So we might see them farming on some rats a bit later on if they're not lucky with their drops.
And it looks like, as expected, they are going to use the pot strats in order to save as much magic as they can for rats in the back half of Escape.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You want to conserve as much magic, bomb, arrow, whatever you're given really as your weapon, because relying on drops is not fun at all. So might as well use a few pots here to just make it sure you get through that small fight very fast.
And they are going to make it into sewer here without a problem. So there are a few magic refills hidden in pots that gives them a little bit more opportunity to farm here, be a little more judicious if they want to farm for drops, but still that does take them a little out of their way, so probably not something that they're hoping to do. Both of them, though, skipping the opportunity to throw a couple pots at these green guards here. Typically, that's a way to farm up a couple of bombs without losing too much time.
Yeah, it's really preferred to try and maybe farm a bit on the rats, because it's not that slow, and it will save them a bit of routing in the beginning here, not just for escape, but for Kakariko in general. Now, as you can see too, they do get a free light cone in the escape, just like any standard mode would in the past. This really only applies this one time they go through it, and once Zelda is officially in Sanctuary, there's no more light cone. So if they can't check, well, if they can't check the back room and have to go through the castle again, they need the lamp or go through dark rooms, which is a bit harder depending on the various skills of these runners.
And we do have a clean key from Zer0rush, but it does not look like he's going to get bombs unless he gets some. And there he goes. Gets that one bomb that he needs.
Unfortunately for Fayorei, she did not have enough magic to activate the cane again. So,
but luckily, it doesn't look like Zer0rush really got anything too exciting from Castle Escape. So Fayorei's not missing too much, although she does not know that yet.
Yeah, that's the major thing, because even if it's not really important, it still plays on your mind, and she will probably come back later on to see what she's missing on, which is nothing. Now, with that said, they finally get out of Sanctuary here, and they're out of the rainy state of the game, and that's pretty much where the open mode starts usually in the other mode that's available to these players. And now the usual play is to look around CAC and go towards Lost Woods too, to check if the first triple, the crab drops, and maybe even check if Lumberjack is required.
Oh, and the triple is green rupees, so not particularly helpful.
Oh, what a full magic drop from the crabs. This is a useful one. They could use it a couple of times during the run.
Especially early now that Burna is still their only weapon.
Indeed.
Looks like a piece of heart on Lumberjack, so sign against Aga 1 being necessary.
Yeah, it's still not sure yet, depending on their access for Dark World, but it's looking good for them not being required.
Oh, and we did have a map check. I think I saw Hera and Eastern were both crystals. Didn't quite see Desert Palace there. Oh boy, and a hammer. That'll be a nice replacement early weapon and gives them a little bit of progression, puts them one step closer to Dark World access.
Yeah, it's one of those weapons where the sooner you find it, the better it is. Just it makes routing so much more easier in Dark World.
Oh, and the second tier tree pull looks like full magic, so still no extra bombs. Looks like they're probably going to both buy those in Kakariko from the shop in the south.
Now, this is going to put a bit of a dent in their rupees right now, as they do not have quite enough to buy bombs and the bottle merchant item. But hopefully, maybe they can get a bit lucky, and wow,
Mirror.
they find a mirror.
Closer still to exciting times.
Now, for Dark World access, they still need a Moon Pearl for these items to be of any use, really. And of course, at least a Power Glove too.
Yeah, if we get Power Glove, we could see something like a Dark World Man Cave and then going to Tower of Hera, considering that that's a crystal.
Now, Chicken Hut doesn't have much here, just a big old piece of heart, but it used to have plenty of locations here in Kakariko Village. You'll more often than not see players go through all of Kakariko Village in the beginning, just because these item locations have so low requirements, usually having no requirements or just bombs.
And we've got Zer0rush on one side, Fayorei on the other. So Zer0rush getting a small shield, not too much else of note so far. And Fayorei getting the red meringue, but still no nothing too exciting in terms of progression from two of the densest item locations in Kakariko.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising when your red meringue is your best prize that you got so far. Now, there's still plenty of stuff to look around here. Soon after, they'll probably go under Kakariko Village, inside library, and the race minigame, followed by, I would say, the dam location and mini Moldorm. It's pretty much a standard given route when you don't find a lot of items in Kakariko.
Oh, and Zer0rush making up enough rupees to get that bottle merchant item, but it is not value in this case. But again, that's another thing that's going to be weighing on Fayorei's mind is she does not have enough rupees to get that, what turned out to be a big 20.
It's not a big problem though, because as long as you do not find the flute, you you would probably just come back and check these locations a bit further in the seed.
Oh, and this is interesting. Fayorei doing a blind timed maze run, where Zer0rush checked it first, and I believe he saw magic powder, which is why he is now going in and getting that as well. Makes up a bit of time if you guess right on that blind maze run.
Yep, good intuition, I would say there. Magic powder is not a, I would say, very good item progression-wise, but it is a very good safety item, especially for Dark World dungeons.
Yes, and there always is that 1 in a million progression on Magic Bat that you worry about happening.
Yeah, fortunately, there is another way they can also check Magic Back, which right now they have access to. Now that I look at it, and they could also use the another glitch that is possible. That's called fake powder, using the mushroom and the cane of Samaria. Of course, right now they do not need this at all, but something to keep in mind for future races if you're interested.
And that's just another piece of heart. But makes it a nice place to save and quit from. Maybe even a little faster than saving and quitting from race game.
Now we'll see Zer0rush here go towards the dam location, and we get another map check from Fayorei, and we do see that desert is indeed another crystal, and it's even a 5/6 crystal, which has a bit more value than usual.
And with the mirror, Zer0rush is going to block destroy here. That's going to let him drain the water from the Lake Hylia puddle and get the item from the chest inside all at once, rather than having to go back in.
Yeah, having that mirror a bit early does give you a bit of time save every now and then. It's fun little trick. It's part of the minor glitches you get to do. It is within the rules, of course, to use these glitches we have determined to be minor glitches. Oh, we have a route divergence here. I like this. Zer0rush is making his way through Mini Moldon Cave, while Fayorei is going to check a desert location, probably checking what's on the ledge and what's in Agina's cave.
Yeah, without book, this is maybe not the percentage play, but it does get an area out of the way. Oh, but Zer0rush finds Moon Pearl. That's going to be pretty important. With that, he is pretty close to a Dark World access.
Yeah, he also found the flute there, which pretty much makes the the play for desert a lot less Yeah, less interesting, let's say. Well,
Oh, but a sword. That's gonna be useful. Gotta have one of those to get to several places in the game.
yeah, what I said about Desert being not that good of a play, well, yeah, I'm eating my words now. But Zer0rush is continuing his way into Ice Cave here. Gonna see what's in there, and probably gonna save and quit and activate that flute as soon as possible, because that thing's very, very useful to just move around.
And Fayorei, unsurprisingly, going back towards Mini Moldorm Cave, probably gonna hit up Ice Rod Cave as well.
Yeah, gonna have a bit of an easier time to go through that with that sword.
And Zer0rush getting his second shield from Ice Rod Cave, one of the more underrated items, I think. Getting the second level shield lets you deflect fireballs, keeps you safe of a lot of annoying incidental damage.
Indeed, one of the best use of it is before you get into Thieves Town, as the boss of Thieves Town, Blind, throws around a lot of fireballs in that fight. So getting it before then is a great way to block a lot of damage. Another interesting item they got to inside of Mini Moldorm Cave we haven't talked about is a shovel here. That's one of those fetch quest items where you have to go out of your way to go to these locations and see what's hidden there. But it's not that much of a problem, I would say, just because there's so early in the seed that they can ignore it for now, and maybe later on, if they're really, really trying to look for specific items, maybe we'll see a bit of a combo if they decide to go check what Stumpy has in the Dark World, and mirroring back up to the Light World and check that shovel location.
Yeah, Shovel is kind of nice to route in with your Dark World checks and with Sick Kid. And since Fairy didn't get a chance to check Bottle Merchant, she may route that together with him as well.
Now, Zer0rush found the flippers here in the back of Agnes' house, so we got some good movement options so far. I'm wondering where exactly it's gonna take him. It looks like Zer0rush may be opting to check the shovel right now.
Yeah, it is. It does take it off your mind at least, and then since he's got flute, he's got real ease of movement. So he may choose after this to just flute down to 8 and start the Lake Hylia loop with Hobo, Waterfall Caves, or that sort of thing.
And funnily enough, right after activating her flute, Fayorei decided to do the exact same thing. Now, judging from the item they have, yeah, that's the difference I was kind of expecting at some point. Zer0rush is doing what the flippers is giving him access to, while Fayorei is deciding to go rescue the old man and check what's up on Death Mountain.
Yeah, Zer0rush doesn't really have a great item to do dark rooms with, since he did not get that sword from Agnes Cave. The hammer and Burna, as well as Boomerang, are also viable for navigating there, but not quite as good as the sword.
And it looks like the man under the bridge was holding on to silver arrows. Great item by all means. Just a bit useless without a bow, though.
So why does he live under a bridge if he has silver arrows?
Hiding from Ganon, I would suspect.
Smart, smart.
And there we go. Fayorei made her way through the set of dark caves on Death Mountain to rescue the old man, while Zer0rush made his way in the waterfall and got 2 items there.
And now with Mire and Hammer, presumably Fayorei is just going to head straight up Death Mountain and do Tower of Hera, which is a crystal dungeon, as long as she's up here.
Now we still have a bit more of divergence here as Fayorei decided to go forward a bit more on Death Mountain, see what's inside Spectacle Rock. She will be able to even go a bit further, even inside of Tower of Hera, having the mirror in hand. It looks like Zer0rush decided to skip rescuing the old man for the effort, for the same reason you said earlier. Not having a sword makes makes it a bit harder to go through dark rooms.
And Fayorei grabbing the heart container on top of Spectacle Rock costs just a couple seconds, and if you don't have a lot of health already, it's a quick 1 health, so why not, really?
Indeed, it's a very smart thing to do. Just going in and trying to rack up a bit more hearts, because Green Mal doesn't offer lots of protection, especially later on in these Dark World dungeons. So might as well get it out of the way here and get a few more safety items.
Yeah, now Fayorei passing up the small key in the basement because without a light source, or excuse me, without a fire source, she will not be able to go down there and do anything with that. And since the other item up in floor 1 of Tower of Hera is a map, neither of our runners are going to be able to progress there until they get a fire source and can hang out in the coffee break room.
Still, maybe we'll see it later how she decides to route it in Tower of Hera, because it is still a required dungeon being a crystal. So we'll see later on how it works out, really. Now, we only have a bottle on the island here, so nothing missed from Fayorei's side, as they are both making their way through Spiral Cave, the very slow way around.
Taking the so-called walk of shame, doing Spiral Cave without the boots, and getting just a big 20 as their reward.
Fortunately for them, they still have a couple more items they can check around here. Now, I gotta say, they're making really good, really smart plays going up in here. As you know, getting the flute this early on, it kind of pushes you in the direction of, go look what's up there. I'm sure you have your progression somewhere on Death Mountain. I'm a firm believer of follow what the seed kind of gives you as progression to breadcrumb your way to a victory.
Yep, and both of them again choosing to use the mirror to do a block cancel gets them into Paradox Cave just a little bit faster than the traditional way on the bottom. And there's our progression. We have gloves in the last Cave of Paradox. That's going to give them Dark World access. And now they have a couple different choices on where they could go.
Yeah, now it all comes down to what they really prefer to check. It looks like Zer0rush is going possibly towards Hype Cave first. I can agree with that. I mean, 5 items up for grabs. They are really, really close one to another. Sure.
And Fayorei doing the bomb jump successfully on her second try, getting back up on top of Death Mountain. I wonder if maybe she's realized that she didn't check the floating island item and is going up to check that before going down and progressing.
Well, it seems not. She's making her way towards Hmm, I don't know. Maybe Tower of Hera? I'm not sure exactly what her play is, but we'll see soon enough.
I suppose she may be. Oh no, here we go.
Oh, maybe
Oh no.
going inside Spike Cave. Ooh, that's a dangerous
Now,
bet.
I'm not sure if she has enough hearts and magic to actually successfully get all the way through this.
Yeah, I really don't think so. That's not enough, in my book at least.
Okay, and we have a map check on Zer0rush's side. Swamp Palace and Turtle Rock are pendants, and Ice Palace is our other 5/6 crystal.
You got some pretty interesting stuff now. We'll see where they kind of decide to go because they're with that glove and hammer in hand, and also that moon pearl. Dark World is pretty much open almost all over. Once they do pick up the Titan's myths, it's going to be even more easily accessible all across.
Yep, and Fayorei finally getting enough money for the bottle merchant. They're getting that big 20. And it looks like probably they're both going towards the warp near Kakariko to do either Skull Woods or more likely, I think the more common play, probably going down into Village of Outcasts and Thieves Town.
Yeah, I saw that a lot more. That nowadays it seems that Thieves Town is much more of a better play to do than going towards Skull Woods if you don't have the Cane of Samaria or Fire Rod. Now, I could be completely wrong too, seeing as these guys are looking towards uh, making their way through different parts of Dark World. And
Oh, yep,
let's.
and we're seeing from our map check from Fayorei now. I did miss that Thieves Town is a pendant, so that may have influenced Zer0rush's decision to go up first before going down.
Ah, and yes, we've seen the green pendant was in Swamp Palace, so that's a nice find too. Yeah, having a dungeon like Swamp being green pendant is kind of not fun because there's so many items inside Swamp, but it's one of those dungeons that take so long to do when you're not in go mode and looking for something. But it has added value from having a green pendant, so it's like maybe later on.
And Zer0rush getting his first non-dungeon item from Skullwoods, just a big 20. And doing a pretty good job with those Gibdos that tend to be real pains in my experience.
As we can see right here. It does happen often enough that this Gipto just camps the doorway and you're like, well, I have to take a damage boost to get through.
Oh my, and Fayorei picking up Master Sword in the C-shaped house. That's going to be, well, they don't have a fire rod yet for getting into Skullwoods, but Master Sword makes a pretty big difference for a lot of bosses in terms of amount of damage you can dish out.
Yeah, and there's also the added benefit of a slightly increased range of the sword. Fighter sword has a bit of shorter range on it, so it does make a difference overall.
And there's another bottle in a viewable but not obtainable location yet. They're teasing us with these bottles this seed.
Now, judging by what Fayorei is doing, I believe she will be checking the graveyard ledge, and maybe we'll see her dip into back the castle sewers to see if what she missed down there.
Yeah, it's a little sad when you can't route this along with Bunk Rocks and King's Tomb, but it is something that's nice to get out of the way, and it seems like very often it does hold progression.
Now, of course, we did not talk about that very much, but they did find the bug net inside of the chest minigame in Village of Outcasts, which is, let's say, maybe kind of a safety, I guess. Not that useful, but still a good thing to catch fairies if that's your thing.
Considering that they know where a few battles are, if they're feeling concerned, then they can go a little bit out of their way, pick up a few bottles, pick up a few fairies, and make it very hard for themselves to die in some of the harder content.
Yep. Just gotta remember, if you have fairies, don't try to death warp.
Oh, and now we see Fayorei's inability to farm bombs during escape coming back, as she is going to drop down into escape via the graveyard route and check and see what she missed there.
Just to add insult on injury here.
Yes, the ultimate irony, getting a bomb drop from a rat at the one time that you don't need it.
Now, it looks like Zer0rush decided to go inside of Thieves Town here to get a bit more items and be able to progress a bit more. Now, Thieves Town is one of those dungeons that's kind of hard to skip, even when it is a pendant dungeon, just because the sheer amount of accessible items with no really requirements other than having Dark World access.
And we're seeing Fayorei doing Houlihan Room here, getting that 225 rupees. Maybe just because she hasn't yet, but she may also be planning a trip up to Zora in the future.
That would certainly be very useful to do. Now we see a bit of routing differences going from these players right now. Fayorei is just taking the mountain cave as their starting point, just for a quick fill up on hearts, and we'll see her make her way towards Hype Cave and get her flippers.
And Zer0rush, of course, making its way through Thieves Town without too much problems. Sometimes it can be a little scary when you have green mail, as just about all the enemies do 2 hearts of damage, even just touching them. But when you have 14 hearts worth of health, that's less of a pressing concern.
There weren't flip. Oh no, the flippers were behind Sashala. Wrong place. It was
Oh,
just
yes,
a
you're right.
bunch of
I
hearts.
forgot as well.
Yeah, that's probably a good reason why we haven't seen Fayorei go towards Zora yet. Just because, yeah, you can fake flipper your way through all of that, especially when you do have the Moon Pearl in your possession. But since we're seeing her go towards probably Pyramid and go around there, maybe we'll just see a. We'll see what she does. And meanwhile, Zer0rush is going through the blind fight. Very
Yep, looking good so far. Getting the first 2 stages pretty much perfect. Oh, and a little bit of trouble at the end, keeping him from getting the ideal blind fight, but still no problems, really.
Yeah, blind is not an easy fight to learn to, but once you do, it's pretty much the same every time. And now
Oh, and Fayorei making a check up to Pyramid and getting Bombos for her trouble. Since Mire is
nice
still a
one.
crystal dungeon, we haven't seen checks on either of those yet, but either of our medallion dungeons. But the more of them you get before you check them, the better off you are.
Yep, more medallions you have beforehand is the best. And whoa, we got boots from Sick Kid. Wow.
Sick Kid can't use those while he's in bed, so he's giving them up, and that could be a pretty big difference, because with just that one item left in Kakariko, it might be a while before Fayorei heads back there and gets those.
Yeah, that's gonna give Zer0rush a bit of an advantage over time, as every places he uses the boots, he saves a bit of time over Fayorei.
And quickly picking up the cape from Digging Game. Again, not necessary, we don't think, since players do have Dark World access. Aga 1 is no longer in play, I don't believe. But kind of a nice defensive item. Makes the Ganon fight a little bit easier sometime.
Indeed, I really like the cape as one of the safety items, because, like you said, it helps so much in a Ganon fight.
And of course, that does open up Bumper Cave in case Zer0rush is thinking about doing a 100% bottles run, getting all 4 of those. And yeah, Fayorei collected her 500 rupees, is choosing to go up here and get an item from Zora without having yet gotten the flippers from behind Sahashala. Oh my, and gets the lamp for her trouble.
That's a nice payoff.
That's going to be very nice, especially since we haven't seen Zer0rush, I don't believe, do any dark rooms yet. It's possible that he may be less practiced with those. If he doesn't find that, that's one way that you can make a pretty big difference.
Yeah, I can see that happening. If you're not that practiced with the dark rooms, waiting for finding the lamp sometimes can put you a bit behind your opponent, depending on where the progression items are. It can also trick you into going places you're not supposed to go in, breaking logic a bit. So you need to be a bit careful with that kind of things. It all depends on really what kind of mentality you go into these randomizers.
And Fayorei now has an opportunity to do some pretty nice routing here in this area. She's going to jump down here and check those Sahashala items, get her flippers, and then probably just go immediately back, check, unless she chooses to divert because of the flippers. She may just go straight back in, get what items she can out of Pod, then mirror back out and get the items that she can out of Eastern Palace. Kind of a nice way to combine a lot of checks at once.
Yeah, even without the bow, it's a great idea to just dip quickly into Pod. It's one of those dungeons that are filled to the brim with items, so and the chances are that it will not be locked by the bow, so might as well have a small dip in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, she doesn't have any potions, so she isn't going to have the opportunity to do the recently discovered glitch, unlocking the camera in the room before the Igors and getting past one check of the bow in Pod to get an extra 2 items.
Yeah, and more unfortunately, I just realized she doesn't have enough money.
Oh no, and she did not realize that either. So she's going to be mirroring and checking Eastern, and hoping in the meantime probably to get enough money to pay that extortionist monkey.
Indeed. Hopefully, she will be able to find a bit more money inside here. But it's looking a bit grim for these chances. Well, as I've seen that already a big 20. Let's go.
Those prize packs, you gotta watch out. Meanwhile, Zer0rush is going to come over here and check Catfish, and probably, well, he's only got 400 rupees, so he may not check Zora at this time. But if he gets those extra, then he may choose to do that as well.
Yeah, and I believe there is a few places to get more rupees inside Eastern. So,
but Catfish does spit up a big old 300, so he's probably going to go ahead and just do that the old-fashioned way.
That's right. Forgot about that earlier on.
And Fayorei getting the first mail upgrade that we've seen, going up to blue mail. Again, with 14 hearts, neither of the runners are really going to be super worried about their health, but every little bit helps.
Zer0rush finds their lamp. Probably glad to see that, as this is the first fire source that they get. So it's good to light up the torches all across.
That's a very good point. Zer0rush now has the option, which I think he may be taking, of going back to Tower of Hera, lighting up that torch room that is locked behind the small key, and completing that crystal dungeon.
Yeah, it's definitely a good play in my book. And it looks like my faith in Fayorei was well placed, as she's already has all the rupees needed to go inside of Pod. Well done.
Yes, 110. It can be very easy to forget that extra 10 that you need to pay to make Kiki follow you in the first place. Or at least I like to think that it's easy based on how many times I've made that mistake.
We all did it at least once. It's kind of like flooding the key in Swamp.
Oh, and Fayorei just choosing to use Berna to activate this button rather than doing the traditional damage boost off the Popo in there.
Well, we'll get to see what's inside the chest here, and unless it's the bow, she will quickly mirror out. Or save and quit out.
And yep, she's choosing to save and quit in order to get to Mountain Cave just that little bit faster, and she is presumably going to do the same thing that Zer0rush is in the process of now, taking a break in that tile room while the blocks leave you invincible. Oh, whoops, nope, I'm mistaken. Fayorei instead just choosing to stop up at Mountain Cave to get the heart refill, and going back down here to Flute Spot 8, possibly to check Ice Rod Cave. Did she skip that in her first run? I think she may have.
Yeah, I believe so too. Now Zer0rush is done with the basement, got his big key, so is now ascending towards the top.
Oh, and making quick work of the enemies in there can be kind of obnoxious with just the sword, but then slipping and falling down in the pit, so probably losing whatever time you might have gained there.
Yeah, it's a small time loss, but nothing major really. It's not like falling in the middle pit at Moldorm, which I really, really wouldn't wish on anybody. It's one of the worst things that can happen in this dungeon.
And choosing to do the bomb jump in order to get that big key chest, but unfortunately falling, and this fall is almost as bad as falling to Moldorm because it puts you down 2 floors as well. And in this case, since he can't hit that switch, leaves him with no choice but to mirror back out. He's going to have to kill these enemies again. That's a somewhat substantial time loss. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and using the mirror means the enemy respawns, so yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's one of those mistakes that happen every now and then. Now, Fayorei just picked up her silver arrows. Now, where is that bow? You got any idea where that bow could be? I'm thinking maybe an ice palace.
I don't know. Pendant Swamp, in my experience, has a way of holding that one last bit of progression that you need.
Yeah, Swamp is one of those dungeons that you're like... Well, I said it earlier. I don't like Swamp. It takes too long to clear, and there's so many items, and it often than not there's nothing. But when it does, you're frustrated because you don't want to go there. And while we were saying that, Zer0rush takes down Moldorm.
Yeah, very clean Moldorm fight with the hammer. About as good as you can expect, since Moldorm is one of the most random bosses. Decided to get himself stuck in a corner for a second there.
And now I would believe that maybe Fayorei is starting to feel a bit of pressure, being 47 minutes in with no dungeon completed, while Zer0rush does have 1 crystal dungeon done and 1 pendant dungeon.
Yeah, and Zer0rush now choosing to make the Spike Cave check. This is a pretty good place for it. And I think, unlike Fayorei earlier, he is going to have enough health and magic to get through there without dying. Oh, and that is the bow. Fayorei is gonna really think back on that miss coming through here, because probably she is not gonna head back to check that in the immediate future.
Yeah, considering she had a death inside a spike cave while trying to check it, that's a cruel location for it.
And now Zer0rush is going to have pretty much the ideal route here. Going to go in to a pod, most likely, clear that out, and then just mirror back out and immediately finish Eastern. Both of those being pendant dungeons. That's very nice to be able to get done.
Yeah, so with that bow and boots in hand, or on feet rather, Zer0rush will be able to quickly get a better and better advance on Fayorei, and eventually, possibly get an advantage that's really hard to come back from.
Now, the one thing that Fayorei does have going for her is that she did pick up that sword from Agnes Cave, giving her master. That's not going to be too big of a concern in these dungeons, since Palace of Darkness relies primarily on the hammer, Eastern Palace relies primarily on the bow. But if another sword is hard to come by, then that could be a little bit of a time game when it comes down to the end, since we can do we can do Ganon with Master Sword, can't do Ganon with Fighter Sword.
Indeed, it's something that we still have to take from account here. There's still a lot of the games to do though, so we'll see how it turns out for them.
Ooh, and Zer0rush trying the cheeky hover over here to this Bolak location. trying it just twice, and then probably he's just going to choose to do that the traditional way.
And my heart raced there. I was not expecting somebody to try to hover this. Now we'll see Zer0rush make his way through this with really no problem at all. Having the bow and silvers in hand is, yeah, it's gonna make every enemy dead in a few seconds.
Yeah, and Zer0rush, of course, having the option to have a potion, no longer needs to do the potion glitch, as he does have the bow to get through that Igor room. Fayorei coming through the hammer yump chamber, electing not to do the hammer yump itself. Probably just going to unlock that door the traditional way.
Yeah, there's very little need to make that jump in standard mode. It's mainly a key sanity type of trick that really saves a lot of time, because you do get all of the keys in each dungeon.
And Fayorei does pick up the big key in the dark room of Pod, which is nice to have before you go into that area. It lets you unlock the big chest rather than having to go back into that room twice.
But she was key locked at that point, so like what you were saying about making the hammer jump, that would have been one of those cases where it could have saved some time to do it in this case.
True. Zer0rush, meanwhile, exercising a little different key management strategy, is not going to have any problem getting in there the traditional way, and that is going to be what he chooses to do.
Now, Fayorei is making her way towards Tower of Hera, I believe, as she still does not have enough to go through Spike Cave at the moment, having no magic at all and not quite enough hearts to survive the cave just by tanking it. But still, I like this routing from her, because going up Tower of Hera and completing it will give her a full magic bar and a full hearts, so she will be well equipped to deal with it afterwards.
Yes, definitely. And since Tower of Hera is a crystal, it's going to have to get done at some point. Since she is key locked in Pod, now is perhaps the best time.
Now I'm starting to wonder where those myths are, because they are blocking a few dungeons which are required to complete this seed. I'd say by now they're possibly inside Swamp. I don't want them to be there, but at this point,
Yeah, we do have 5 chests, I believe, in Swamp. No, excuse me. No, yeah, they don't have hookshot, so 5 chests that are checkable there, any of which could contain any of the progression they don't have so far.
In the meanwhile, Zer0rush is making his way very close to entering the King Helmasaur room. He's going to have a pretty easy fight, I believe. 17 hits to the mask and then a single silver arrow to the jewel to take care of this boss.
Yeah, silver arrows are one of those great time saves to have on Helmasaur King, especially when the only other weapons you have are hammer and fighter sword. That's a significant speed up.
Yeah, it's one thing probably every NMG runner wishes they could find early on.
Oh, but surprisingly, Zer0rush just choosing to use sword pokes. Turning out fairly fast, actually. No, excuse me. I think he must have used hammer strikes because that was a few too few to just be fighter sword pokes.
Yeah, that was interesting strat there. Usually I see people using that, but yeah, that was great aim with the hammer, especially trying to aim up with it. It's anybody that's used a hammer before knows that you don't hit anything when trying to hit up.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe maybe having your sword out when using those hammer strikes enlarges the hitbox of the hammer slightly.
Yeah, it does. It makes it a lot easier to do strikes with your hammer, but still, it's still shorter than expected. So good on him.
And Fayorei getting that bomb jump in Tower of Hera, first try, I believe. Saves a little bit of time there. Zer0rush picking up his blue mail as Fayorei goes into the Moldorm fight. And looks like Fayorei is going to elect to go with Master Sword spins instead of the hammer. Same amount of hits, but gives you a little bit of insurance against getting bonked off by Moldorm, since while you have the sword out, you cannot be pushed off that ledge quite as easily.
Yeah, it makes the fight a lot easier, especially when Moldorm tends to just bonk into you until you go down the hole. It's easier that way than the hammer.
And meanwhile, Zer0rush, having finished up Pod, is going to make pretty short work of Eastern Palace here. He's very well equipped for that right now. And Fayorei, as you said, using that full magic refill from defeating Moldorm to come down here and check Spike Cave correctly this time. And with this, I think almost certainly she's going to head back into Pod in Eastern Palace, finishing up, or restarting the route that Zer0rush is now just about to finish.
Yeah, it is at this point a very good play to do that, as they're both crystal dungeon that are completable. So might as well get it over with.
And unless he finds mitts on Armos Knights here, Zer0rush is going to have an interesting decision to make after he finishes this boss fight. Because there's still a few things available to him, but without mitts, Mire is not available. Without the book, he still has no way to get into Desert Palace. And so he's still got a few essential things locked out.
That was a flawless fight. Wow.
Yeah, in the time that it took me to say that sentence, Zer0rush finishes off Armos Knights picture perfect.
Now with another crystal under his belt, I wonder where Zer0rush is going to go next, because without the myths, you can't really access Ice Palace or Misery Mire. With no book or the myths, you still cannot enter the desert either. So I'm pretty sure at this point that Swamp is the play to make afterwards.
Yep, and he is checking the desert ledge, seeing just bombs there. but more importantly, he is going to come over here and pick up his Master Sword. That's going to be a nice find for him, and that is going to let him complete Ganon if the runner should get to that point without finding another sword.
Indeed. It's very likely that they find something else along the way, but you never know. They could be hidden in the wrong side of Ganon's tower. Or just somewhere on the overall location that they don't check. We'll see later on. And as expected, Zer0rush is making his way towards the Swamp Palace set because this is pretty much the most item-dense location he has that he can check right now.
I think he may be going up to check Pyramid Ledge first. Fayorei got something of note off there. I can't quite remember exactly what it was at this point.
Ah, yes, it was Bombos medallion that was there.
Ah, yes, exactly right. So depending on what medallions Mire uses, this could be an essential check.
Not exactly sure if it's going to be required, but it does offer up a couple of new things for information. Having a second medallion like that helps to open Misery Mire or Zer0rush if they decide to go there later on. And of course, Bombos also has its uses inside Ice Palace, defeating the Freezor enemies.
Yes, and without half magic, Bombos makes it nice to deal with Cold Stare, as it leaves you a little bit of magic for Fire Rod shots if you have the Fire Rod, which do more damage against Cold Stare than a Master Sword, to be sure. One thing that we didn't comment on while players are doing some kind of prosaic things, Zer0rush has a couple of times made use of spin speed. That's a minor glitch that's accomplished by releasing a spin slash with your sword, and then on the very next frame hitting the A button to do a dash. That's what you've been seeing that lets him do some very quick runs. He uses it on Pyramid. I believe I also saw him use it on Death Mountain. And that gets him moving at that dash speed, but with full control. It's a nice little movement trick in the minor glitches. Lets you do things a little bit faster.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of those things that you want to learn over time, because it does have its a few time save every now and then. And oh boy, Cane of Samaria in the first chest. How about that? It's not quite as helpful at the moment, but it will be required later on.
And it does open up, potentially, again, we haven't had either medallion check, but it does open up Turtle Rock to the possible list of locations that could contain progression, as without Samaria, you can't get in there at all.
Indeed. They do still need the mitts to access that dungeon, but at this point, I'm betting that it's inside of here. It's inside a swamp. And that would make a very stacked swamp, having 2 progression in it.
Yeah, thinking towards the future again, Samaria is another one of those items that, even if it isn't strictly required, gives you some peace of mind, because it lets you know that you will be able to complete Ganon's Tower right-hand side in case the big key happens to be stored there.
Indeed, it makes for a very interesting routing, depending on what you prefer to do inside Ganon's Tower. But for now, it looks like we'll be looking at the left side first, rather than checking the, I believe it's the map chest just south of the big chest room.
Yes, I think you're right.
Now, meanwhile, Fayorei is making good work towards in pod. We'll soon be over with it, and then we'll be able to clear Eastern.
Yep, and we are seeing map chest just a little bit sooner. but we're getting the important item out of it. As you predicted, there are the Titan's mitts.
I mean, it's not a very hard prediction at this point. There's so little locations left for them to check around that, yeah. You know what? Yeah, I predicted, yeah.
You gotta take the credit where it's due, right?
Now that opens up pretty much everything else that was locked around the place. There's still a few items locked because of hookshot. That would be nice if it were in here, but I kind of don't expect it at this point. There's already 2 progression items in Swamp. What are the chances that like hookshot is your like last item you can get on left side, right?
Yeah. Zer0rush still choosing to clear that left side since he has went to the trouble of flooding all the requisite columns or corridors, rather than choosing to just mirror out as you might do. But after getting this chest, almost certainly he's just gonna mirror out. And where do you think his next choice is gonna be? Do you think he will flute to Mire, go up to T-Rock, or somewhere else?
I'm thinking Ice Palace.
Also makes sense. He just got Bombos, so that gives him the ability to kill the Freezors in there. And it is a pendant, or excuse me, it is a crystal dungeon, so I'm gonna have to complete it eventually.
Because everybody knows that Mire, of course, could be a good play, but I still like what he's doing because even if he doesn't make it inside Mire, he can still check Mire, Shed, Checkerboard Cave, and of course Desert Palace, having those mitts on hand.
Yes, good point. Even without the book, he's going to be able to use the back entrance into Desert Palace and get the last of the Light World dungeons finished up.
And of course, a bit of a stroke of bad luck here as Mire is still not accessible, being locked by Quake of all things.
It's always the one you don't have.
Oh, it looks like Zer0rush will be not going to take that red mail here.
He's got 15 hearts and blue mail. If he feels confident enough, and the level of skill that he's shown, probably he's going to be okay for the rest of the game without spending that 2 or 3 seconds to get red mail.
Now it's something I can respect. I mean, dodging blue mail, that's one risky move, but dodging red mail, it's something that's quite acceptable in these racers. Once they do get around a lot with these bosses, yeah, there's only really Ganon that's a bit dangerous, but you just need to not hug him and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and of course, still a lot of game left to go, but both runners still on the Master Sword, so there is a possibility that they're going to have to do Master Sword Silver's Ganon, which increases the probability of getting a few hugs. And Fayorei, not quite the picturesque Armos Knights that we saw from Zer0rush, but still very solid. Getting that done, getting the crystal from Eastern Palace.
Yep, making progress towards getting all those crystals. Now, I believe she will soon be stuck the same way Zer0rush was, trying to figure out what her next play is. So, we might see her go plunge into Swamp soon enough.
And Zer0rush, meanwhile, clearing out the front half of Desert Palace in pretty standard fashion. With the lamp, he is going to have the fire source that he needs to unlock Landmolus here. And considering what we saw from Armos Knights, I'm excited to see how his Land Molus fight is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, he does have silver arrows, so he'll probably be able to make short work of him.
And again, if they had Land Molus fight in the dictionary, this would be the picture under it. That was just a matter of seconds, and Zer0rush picks up that last Light World Pendants. Or Crystal, excuse me.
These Landmo had no chance at all. They barely got out of the ground, they were already dead.
And very quickly fluting over to 8, and now Zer0rush is going to take the opportunity to enter ice, using that Bombos in order to clear out the ice enemies.
Now, it is going to be a bit intensive on his magic here, using Bombos each time he needs to kill Freezors, which that means magic management is it's going to be important going through this dungeon.
Fayorei, meanwhile, heading back to Swamp Palace, it looks like. She still does not have the Fire Rod, and so she's not going to be able to progress, get the crystal there. But heading back, maybe just to pick up items that she didn't have a chance at last time.
Yeah, and without having the boots too, it makes Zer0rush keeps getting a bit more time on her every time he uses them, and by this time you can see all the difference it can make over all of the run.
And Fayorei actually looks like she's choosing to head into Thieves Town, pick up some of the chests that she didn't get here, probably because that was a pendant dungeon. Chose to skip it at the time. And Zer0rush taking one fall, but otherwise making the Ice Palace bomb jump without issue.
Yeah, the bomb jump in Ice Palace is one of those tricks that at this point I would recommend every runner of Rando to do and to learn. It saves so much time, and it's really a really minor thing to learn, as it does save a lot of time.
Yeah, and without Tempered Sword or Hookshot, electing to use bombs on the ducks in that room, again, executing it masterfully, getting them all taken out in just one cycle.
Now, Zer0rush was able to go with this side because of finding a small key early on, so it made it possible to do this. And look at that Fire Rod.
That's going to be nice for a couple of things. One, that's going to let him into. It's going to let him do things in Turtle Rock. It's going to make the boss fight here a little bit easier, as after he gets Cold Stare unlocked, he's going to be able to do a little bit of extra damage that way. And in general, just a nice item to have.
And it looks like Zer0rush is willing to skip the big chest for now.
Yeah, and missing that bomb jump, it looks like... Okay, yeah, rather than trying to skip any items in Ice Palace, he is going to take the long way back up, going backwards through the big key and small key doors, which does not use up his keys. Although he does have plenty, so I suppose that's no longer really a concern at this point.
Yes, it's always a bit funky to see it anyways. Oh, ooh, is he doing a hovering over this?
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's one of them I'd never really seen in a race before.
It makes some sense. Those ice physics can be tricky to manage, and considering that it's a diagonal gap, it is one of the smallest ones that you have the opportunity to cross over.
I wonder how ice physics affect the hovering. I'm not exactly the expert in hovering here, so there's a few things I'm missing to be able to explain exactly how that would work out.
So you're saying that knowing how to hover wasn't a requirement for the commentary position?
Not quite. There was plenty of others, but that's not one of them.
And Fayorei, meanwhile, progressing in the standard fashion through Thieves Town, about to hit that big chest before going to blind, as Zer0rush about to enter the cold steer fight.
Yeah, I believe he did not get what was inside that big key chest, but I also did not count how many items he got. Maybe he is counting off as it maybe being a map. Yeah. So
He did try to do that bomb jump again, and I didn't count either, unfortunately, but I do believe that he may still be missing one item here in Ice Palace. If it's on cold steer, of course, that's no problem, but if not, that's something that he's going to keep in the back of his mind. And now that red mail is feeling kind of appealing, down to just a half a heart. Oh, but he is going to use Cape and finish off 2 puffs very quickly. So that makes this a lot less tense now.
Indeed. When there's only one left, it's a lot more manageable. And unfortunately, it's a map.
Meanwhile, as we were focusing on cold stare, Fayorei releasing the bee in blind, having a little bit of fun with that. Unfortunately, I feel like that adds a little bit more lag than it does save time, but still fun to watch.
Look at that bee flash. It's going supersonic. And at least Thieves Town did give Fayorei something very useful, a bottle, and that would help her out very much, as now she can dash around with the boots she got from Sick Kid.
Yeah, those boots, not essential, I don't think, in Desert Palace, since the item on there was not used for anything, but finally she's going to get a chance to go fast. Meanwhile, Zer0rush, having picked up the fire rod in Ice Palace, is going to flute it into Kakariko, and is going to finish off Mothula most likely. Pretty quick fight when you get to enter from the back half.
Now, the Gyptos weren't playing nice with him, but it seems like Zer0rush did not really care for them anyway.
Yeah, and Mothula, with Master Sword and with relatively little magic, scary sometimes. Again, with the level of execution that we've seen from Zer0rush, I don't think he has too much to worry about here, but it can be an unpleasant fight, or at the very least a time-consuming fight, especially if you hit Mothula into spikes. Again, before I finished my sentence, he's finished with this fight, so shows what I know.
Yeah, we're seeing a very high level of execution on Zer0rush side here. Mothula is one of those fights that can take so long if you just throw him into spikes, and yet he just did this fight with Master Sword only, not even switching to his Fire Rod. That was wow. I'm impressed.
And now with no hook shot to finish Swamp, and missing the Quake pendant or the Quake medallion that he would need for Mire, it looks like Zer0rush might be going to check the Turtle Rock medallion and potentially dip that dungeon, see what he can get out of that.
Yeah, without that ice rod though, I would kind of expect him to look around in Dark Death Mountain on the east side, see what's hidden over there.
I don't think he has checked the bonkable chest inside Hookshot Cave yet, so probably he'll route at least that, and probably Super Bunny Cave in as well before heading straight to Turtle Rock. And of course, there's another glance at that bottle on the floating island. Again, given Zer0rush's choice to skip red mail, I highly doubt that he's going to spend the extra 15-20 seconds needed just to obtain that bottle.
And there we have it. Turtle Rock was locked by Bombos, so it's now accessible for him right now.
And yep, it does look like he is going to check those dark overworld locations before heading in.
It makes a lot of sense because just in case that Trinexx is holding on to that dear hookshot, Turtle Rock is one of those dungeons you really don't want to get out just to have to come back in. And look at that, half magic.
Half magic, nice thing to have when you're facing down Trinexx with the Master Sword, or with the hammer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And telling that enemy in the way of the bonk chest, go away. Oh, and since we've seen hovers, I didn't even think about this. It looks like we are going to see hovers to check the other ones, the other chests in Hookshot Cave. And we do have one successful that reveals the ice rod.
No
Wow.
way! Oh,
The
wow.
one hover that has been successful, and what an important hover it was. Now that Turtle Rock dungeon going to be fully completable, and picking up the second chest, second hookshot lock chest in Hookshot Cave, arrow upgrade, I think, and just a 5 rupees, so nothing else exciting. But that's a very well placed hover. That's going to make going into Turtle Rock here a lot more palatable than it might be otherwise.
Man, I'm still baffled by that. Ice Rod being there just made this whole dungeon a lot less worrying, but that also kind of shows you that Trinexx doesn't have the hookshot, so it's either before that or not in this dungeon at all.
Yeah, and I'm not sure which overworld locations Zer0rush has unchecked. So my bet would be that it's in an earlier chest, possibly in Laser Bridge or something in here in Turtle Rock, that hookshot.
Yeah, that would be a great guess too. Considering he didn't check a lot of overworld locations requiring the mitts, it could also be on the blacksmith or purple chest locations.
And Fayorei, while we were watching that excitement, did pick up the bottle from Bumper Cave. So I believe that she has 2 now.
Yep, that would be a bit more safety going through the seed. 2 bottles is probably what I like the most to have. One containing, you know, some kind of magic refilling, and the other one maybe a fairy. At this point, since they do have both the bug net, it is an option to carry on one around.
And Zer0rush doing the Burna item dash to get through the spike rollers there. If you don't have the hook shot to give yourself some invincibility, that's a pretty quick way to do it.
Yeah, it also looked very swag to do. It looks like Fayorei is getting to the same conclusion as we all had, that swamp has to have something in it. And that's great because it's going to put her back into progression mode.
Yep, she will be picking up her mitts in there, and probably following along a similar path to the one that we've seen Zer0rush take.
And sorry for the anti-hype there, chat, but yeah, we did get the hook shot. So now all we're really looking for is Quake Medallion. And that's going to be the go mode item.
Yes, and Hookshot was disqualified from being on Trinexx. Quake Medallion, still a possibility. So we might see something useful coming out of that Ice Rod hover, giving Zer0rush the ability to full clear Turtle Rock. And Zer0rush, of course, checking Mimic Cave along the way through Turtle Rock. Pretty standard routing, except in those rare cases where you're unfortunate enough not to have the mirror as you go through. But now, after the Dark Room Maze here, we are going to see Zer0rush coming up on Laser Bridge, one of the more dense item dense regions in the entire Dark World, really. So that'll be fun to watch that.
Yeah, especially since we seem to be having somebody that's quite skilled at the game here, so we'll probably see some dashes inside those item locations.
And Fayorei picking up her mitts and immediately choosing to mirror out of Swamp Palace. Considering that she may be feeling a bit behind by this point, that may be a good choice, giving up on the possibility of further progression on left side swamp in order to sort of get on with the chain that the game suggests.
Yeah, that is a good play too to do. Considering what we know about it, that there's absolutely nothing else inside that dungeon. Yeah, that's good on her.
Zer0rush picking up his 3rd bottle. We do know where all 4 of them are in the game. And of course, right after the #1 most useful place for it, picking up his mirror shield. And here we go. Zer0rush heading into Trinexx. Attacking from the back with the hammer. This is a strat that, at this point, given his level of execution, I probably should have expected. This is one of the quickest ways that you can accomplish this fight, given the items that he has available to him right now. And yeah, in short order, taking out the two side heads. Looks like he's going to start with a Master Sword spin, and then, yep, switch to the hammer and finish off Trinexx with hammer stretch, not Hamex. And missing a few to that small hitbox, but again, really good clear of that boss. That's going to earn him a big 20, unfortunately, but also the second pendant.
So now we're pretty much down to some overall location for this quick medallion. Either
Yes.
that or it's further down inside a swamp. Oh.
And considering where Zer0rush is going, that may be where he's going to check. Without the book, he can't check Bombos medallion down here, so there's not a whole lot else in this area of the map that's relevant to him.
Yeah, and considering that he now has two pendants out of his way already, he might be banking on the fact that it's either inside a swamp or it's on the pedestal.
Yeah, without the book, we have not had the opportunity to see a ped check, and so there is still a possibility that this is a pedestal required seed.
Man, if it is a pedestal required seed, it was evil. Now, just that ice rod location. Yeah.
Yeah, that would make the intended logic, at the minimum, a double dip into Turtle Rock. One to get the hook shot, another to come out and get Ice Rod from Hookshot Cave, and then going back into Turtle Rock to finish off Trinexx. Meanwhile, Fayorei making her way through the back half of Desert Palace with relative ease. She also has silvers, so we'll see in just a second after she lights these torches if she's going to use the same strategy there as was used by Zer0rush. Oh, and so close. 2 silver arrows, and then the third one just going wide, just missing the 0 cycle. But all in all, a really solid fight from Fayorei as well, finishing off Landmulus just about as quickly as reasonable, and getting a crystal for her troubles.
Now, the next dungeon in play for her is probably Ice Palace, as this is what Zer0rush did do, but it's also logically what you should probably do, considering you cannot enter Misery Mire. And
Meanwhile, Zer0rush taking sometimes boring fight and making it a little bit more exciting by using the double hookshot strats, getting 2 puffs at once and getting rid of those with Master Sword folks. and getting the triple shot with the fire rod coupled with a Master Sword spin to finish off the main body. Again, just a consummately professional fight, netting Zer0rush his third pendant.
Preferring some grilled Argus over some, I believe would be some pierced one. Ah, missed my joke so bad.
We got it. We'll laugh in sympathy.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, and since he does have both the 5 and the 6 crystals, choosing to take the big bomb route on up into Pyramid Fury here. Meanwhile, Fayorei struggling a little with those ducks. They can be a little bit hard when you just have Master Sword, since there's no single strike that will do them in, but taking care of those in fairly short order.
Just need to get through those mighty ducks. It's not exactly easy.
And meanwhile, Zer0rush activating spin speed for approximately a quarter of a second just to dash into Pyramid Fury. Unfortunately, not finding the Quake Medallion there, so he's got a few more overworld locations to check.
Kind of an interesting choice to go through this way.
Oh yeah, I was thinking that maybe he was going to do a few MITS overworld locations, but it looks like he is going up first to check Pet. And of course, here we are, 1 minute 37 seconds, still no book, so we are going to see the blind pedestal pull. And of course, that best of all possible items, a big 20 on pedestal. Looks like we still got a few overworld locations to go.
Pedestal of disappointment.
Another sensible choice with the flute activated. Looked like he's going to go over and turn in his green pendant with Sahasrara.
Yep, turn in all those fetch quest things. Might as well be in there. And another
It's
one.
turning up red rupees everywhere we look. And now, speaking of fetch quests, we have not seen the mushroom yet. So, while we are looking for Quake, there is still a possibility that we might find the mushroom and have one more step to go before we reach our mythical go mode.
Oh, he's going inside of Ice Palace once more to check that big chest.
A very important check. He came in here without hookshot. He couldn't get through, or chose not to take the long strat of bombing the floor, going in and getting hookshot chest.
Now, of course, there's plenty of overall locations left for him to check, especially, I believe he did not do Bonk Rocks, King's Tomb, or anything requiring the myths, such as the Dwarven Smiths and the Purple Chest.
And meanwhile, Fayorei completing Ice Palace for the first time here. Depending on how the routing goes, we may see them high-five each other as they come through and Zer0rush picks up that last of the items that he's left here. Fayorei making an interesting choice to perhaps bomb jump across here and getting it on the first try. That's a bomb jump that is maybe a little bit more rare than some of the other ones in Ice Palace.
Yeah, it's definitely on the rarer side. Well done at doing it in the first try. Shows that despite the difference and maybe a bit of skill that these players do display here, that both of their knowledge is very good.
Yep, and it seems like we may have a meeting of, not quite. Without the hook shot, Fayorei also cannot use the minor glitch to get that big chest, so... Oh, and it is Quake. Zer0rush choosing to bomb and abuse that chest as much as he possibly can for the temerity of holding an item that he had to miss the first time around.
Man, that was... He must be feeling a bit bad about himself for that one because, man, that chest.
And mirror bonking on the rock into Ice Palace on the way out, just to add a little bit of insult to having to go back to get that item. Meanwhile, as he enters Mire, Fayorei going to attempt cold steer here. Looks like with Master Sword spins. The hammer, also a popular choice, one that Zer0rush made use of, but very difficult because of the relatively small hitbox on that hammer. You got to get right up next to those cold steer puffs and risk having them hug you.
And it's looking like the Puffs really don't want to... They really don't want to group up right now, making the fight take longer.
No, unfortunately, Fayorei missed the opportunity to get them stuck in the corner at the beginning of the fight, so they all kind of fanned out and are taking kind of an inopportune pattern. But they are coming back together now, finishing off one with a Master Sword spin. And even just getting rid of one makes the fight much less stressful. You've got a lot less to keep track of. Zer0rush, meanwhile, has entered Mire. He should be go-moding this. He's just looking for the big key, and he's got everything that he needs. He's got silver arrows, so the Vitreous fight should be very quick, and he's just looking to finish the game at this point. And he gets the big key, and is he going to hover across this gap? He is 3/4 of the way. He is 7/8 of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, people of all ages, I do believe he has made that hover. I think we also saw Andy do this in his race earlier today. That's one of the longer hovers that you see in the game, and that's just a real display of excellent execution of one of the most difficult tricks in the game.
Yeah, this was definitely... I wouldn't say showing off because it does save some time. So, yeah, good job on him. That was amazing.
And I believe that chest was the first one that he checked. So this is pretty much the ideal go mode Mire. He got the big key. He's going to be at Vitreous in just 15-20 seconds here. And with Silvers, he's going to have no difficulty finishing off Vitreous. Fayorei, meanwhile, did manage to finish off Cold Stare, got that crystal, and looks like she has fluted back into Kakariko. Of course, as I'm talking now, Zer0rush finished with Vitreous. Very straightforward fight with Silvers, and getting his last crystal.
Man, this has been a constant thing on Zer0rush side is bosses just melt under his rule. In the meanwhile, it seems like Fayorei is off to try and look around for the missing items. It seems that she did not pick up the fire rod inside of Ice Palace, so that also puts her a bit behind even more.
Yeah, I think perhaps without hookshot, and she may have done her key management differently, and not used that key to open the right-hand side door in the four-way room, meaning that she missed out on that chest that did contain the fire rod.
And without that fire rod means Skull Woods is inaccessible and Turtle Rock doesn't have much in it. And I do not remember if the hookshot was behind, was locked behind some kind of key. It was on the chain chomp room, but I do not remember if. I think she can reach that.
I believe there was a small key in the first room that you can reach with just Samaria, yeah. So I believe that she could, if she chose to dip Turtle Rock at this point, pick up the hookshot.
And now she found the book, sending her even further away from what she needs to do. Unfortunate, but it happens in Rando Seed. You miss one item location, it kind of devolves a bit. But now it seems like we're entering Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, and meanwhile, as you were talking, Zer0rush showing complete mastery of execution, but facing down the one thing that will stop anybody, that Lino sitting in the way of the bridge while all you have is the Master Sword and you can't damage it. Seems like it happens every single time. And of course, now is the time if you want to get your numbers in for the GT Big Key guessing game.
Indeed. I believe that right now he went to left side first. We're coming up to the first chest here.
Yeah, not checking the so-called hope room can save you a little time if the key's on the left, can lose you a little time if the key's on the right. And I believe, was that piece of part that filled him up, or did we find Sankart? I think I just saw it on screen for a split second there, but I think we may have found Sankart, which is kind of an ironic place to find it. 18 hearts going up Ganon's Tower. Definitely not a problem for Zer0rush, but makes the end game pretty trivial for just about all purposes. No big keys so far, and no real exciting items left to find. We have seen Red Mail already passed up, so there's really nothing that's going to give him any benefit in the Ganon fight itself. So we are really just looking for Big Key. We do find Mushroom. Happily, we're not in Key Sanity, so there's no chance of the Witch holding on to Big Key.
Yeah, that does make a big difference overall.
And Zer0rush taking, I guess we could call it the Dark Magician route, heading back into right side now, and unfortunately seeing Big Key in the second chest there. That's the danger of not taking that hope room, is sometimes it pays off, other times it doesn't.
Man, that Big Key location. Should have started on the right side instead of left. My usual guess of number 2 would have been right.
And a few slashes for the chest, but he didn't opt to bomb and fire rod this one, so I guess he's a little less mad at this one than he was Quake.
Yeah, after all, he's probably thinking, you know what, I'm an hour 40 something into this seed. I probably should be concerned about finishing it this pretty fast.
Yeah, unfortunately, Fayorei, I I believe you just said did get book, and it looks like she may be going up now to check the tablet. I did not see if she checked Bombo's tablet earlier, but just from what we know from seeing Zer0rush, we know that there's not really much of value that could have been hidden there.
Making short work of Gauntlet here, going pretty fast.
Yeah, a little bit low on health. I gave that little quip about having 18 hearts, but he is going to choose to powder this fairy here, get himself back up to a little more reasonable before entering Land Molus 2. And also opting to use Fire Rod instead of Silver Arrows for Land Molus 2. Silver Arrows in this room, for some reason, tend to generate a whole lot more lag. So in the long run, this is probably the faster strat.
Using the Cane of Samaria here makes short work of Wizrobes. Let's see if he gets the same beautiful tactics in the second room here. And he does. Beautiful.
The 0 cycle.
Got a couple of rude guards in there, but right now he should, yeah, he has enough magic to go through this room.
Yeah, especially using Torch, and with half magic, there wasn't too much danger of completely running out there.
Yeah.
Oh, opting to skip the full magic restore down on the lower floor, though, to his detriment. Unfortunately, not quite enough magic for that fourth one, and he is going to have to pick that up and try again. And it was a valiant effort trying to use the torch to get that last light, but unless you can hover and use the torch in the same attempt, I don't think that's going to work out.
Yeah, it looks like something that may be slightly out of reach for now.
Picking up the chest before Moldorm 2, just for fun. Or potentially looking for a Tempered Sword to make Ganon just that little bit faster. Especially since, wow, choosing to hover Moldorm 2, bypass that very last chest of the game before going into Aghanim 2 and Ganon.
I'm betting that was like a Tempered Sword. Gets 2 hits on the Aga 2 fight from the start. That's not bad.
This looks like a good... Ooh, yeah, a good triple setup, but unfortunately getting a blue ball and not getting the timing quite right. But in the end, working out okay. 2-1-1-2, I believe.
Now Fayorei is about to get her hookshot here, having the small key necessary to go towards the chain chomps.
Yeah, taking the long way around. Oh, but good, not going in. Okay, so remembering that those torches can only be lit with the fire rod, so no chest's going to be accessible there. And Zer0rush starting that Master Sword Ganon.
Yeah, as you can see, he has to do full spins on him because Ganon does not take any damage from just slashes on Master Sword. You need at least Temper to do that.
And again, having skipped the red mail, he is going to have to be slightly careful with his health here. He does have 19 hearts by this point, so pretty healthy seed in general, but still a big time loss if you find yourself dying here. And as Zer0rush continues spin strats on Ganon, Fayorei does pick up her hook shot, and thankfully is immediately going into hookshot cave, so she's very soon going to pick up her ice rod as well. Unfortunately, I do not think there was any other progression left in T-Rock, so that may end up tricking her into going back into T-Rock for a whole lot of nothing.
Well, considering that right now she can't really get anywhere inside T-Rock because of lack of Fire Rod, that's a good thing.
Oh yes, absolutely true, and that is going to be to her benefit.
Gonna push her probably towards more of either Swamp Palace or Ice Palace to get into these rooms she couldn't get in earlier.
And Zer0rush missing the Torch Clutch, but getting a double on the second phase, so he just needs one more arrow and he gets it. So that is going to end his game in success, beating Ganon with a final time of just a hair under 1 hour 57 minutes. Really interesting seed altogether, and we'll see if we can get him in just a second in here for an interview, see what he thinks about it. Now, Fayorei, going back into Swamp here, is an interesting choice because she skipped left side Swamp. So she may, still not having Quake, choose to get those items immediately before going back, or she may just head straight back to Argus, pick up that pendant there, and all the other items along the way in the back half of Swamp Palace, and see if any of those give her the progression that she needs.
Yeah, overall, I would say that this seed has been a tiny bit trolly with a few items, notably being the hook shot inside of Turtle Rock. It did give them a false way of trying to read the seed and where exactly to go, as finding a hook shot there, but not having the required items to beat it, especially having the ice rod being hookshot cave, kind of pushes you around a bit and you don't really know where to go. And now she's going inside Swamp, as you said, and won't find any progression in here either.
Okay, and Zer0rush, just taking a second here, he is going to hop on the server, and we will get a brief interview with him, I think.
Indeed, just resolving a small technical issue going on. We'll be here shortly.
Meanwhile, yeah, Fayorei does look like, choosing to mirror here. Possibly taking a second thought about the path that she wants to take through there.
I believe she flooded the key, unfortunately.
Oh, I see. So choosing to get those left-hand side items, but making a small technical error there.
Yep, and I believe we now have Zer0rush with us inside the channel, so hi there.
Excellent. GG, Zer0rush.
Yeah, GG's. How's it going?
It's going well, and seeing how your race went, I'd say you're doing pretty well too, with one win under your belt. How does it feel?
Well, I'm glad I won, but not happy about the seed. Ended up doing like an extra 20 minutes worth of stuff because I can't bomb jump apparently, but it all worked out, so.
Yeah, it was a bit of a hard play there inside of Ice Palace, the way the keys were arranged. Your opponent also had a bit of troubles doing all the correct path in it.
And that quake in the one chest that you were forced to skip, not coming off too well. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I missed the first bomb jump and then I missed the second one. I was like, well, maybe Cold Stare has it. If not, then whatever, I guess. There's so much more other stuff to do with the Fire Rod. And then I found the Ice Rod and Hookshot Cave, and then the Hookshot and Turtle Rock. So I got excited because I was like, maybe Quake is on pedestal, and I just saved myself a, I don't know, 10-minute double dip or something. But fortunately, that didn't happen either. And then I muscle memoried left side GT because I've been playing a bunch of the vanilla game lately, and the key was the first chest on right side.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate there, but that's Rando, right?
Yeah. So it was a bit of
your vanilla
frustrating,
practice certainly showed off there. Some of those boss fights, cured my illnesses and made me feel like a new person.
That's good. I particularly liked my Mafia fight. I think that one went pretty well. The Master Sword.
Yeah, Master Sword Mafia, and I believe you didn't have any damage cancel onto spikes too. That was, yeah, it was very impressive to see.
Yeah, he was cooperating a lot and bouncing all the way back down to the bottom. Sometimes he just hangs in the corner. But other than that, it was pretty fun. Always liked the forced no hookshot Swamp Palace.
Yeah, forced no hookshot Swamp Palace, having both Mitz and the King of Samaria in it. Pretty stacked, I would say.
I honestly should have went there sooner. I was kind of expecting something like that because the Light World had like exactly the items you needed to get to Dark World, and then I don't know, the seed was just so bare. It kind of seemed like it was dragging you around from place to place.
Yeah, well, just considering the number of hearts you got up to 19 hearts inside the seed, and even found the red mail, just chose not to pick it up. So the seed was, yeah, pushing you in every corner, really.
Yeah, I think the only item locations were the ones left in Ganon's Tower and the ones that you could get to from items in Ganon's Tower. I'm pretty sure I cleared everything else out 100%.
Yeah, or you were very close to it, at least. We were wondering too, at the beginning, you weren't finding any swords all over the place. Even Fayorei, your opponent, she's still on Master Sword too. at this point, we're kind of figuring out that it's probably in Gan's Tower somewhere.
Yeah, I was just happy to find the first sword. I was getting kind of bodied all over the place in Dark World with the hammer. And I only had green mail at that point, so I was getting a little worried even though I had like 13 hearts, because every dungeon I went into, I ended up leaving with like 1 heart or 2 hearts, or it got a little scary.
Yeah, that was actually one of the interesting early route divergences. Fayorei actually went left after getting the item from Swamp Pond and picked up the first sword in Agnes Cave. So she was actually sitting on Master Sword for a little while.
Yeah, I went, I think I went to the island, because for whatever reason I was thinking the bottle's on the island, but it was on the floating island, and I did not make that distinction apparently. I was just not paying attention well enough, I guess, so otherwise I probably would have went left or checked Pyramid instead, which would have been nice either way.
Yeah, we especially liked. We didn't really like this seed overall. I would say, just from a routing perspective, it made it kind of worrisome to see exactly where you were supposed to go with all these items. But your mastery on bosses was certainly appreciated, and it was very fun to watch. So thank you very much for giving us a great race, really, to commentate.
Yeah, good games. Thanks for commentating, and thanks for watching, everyone.
So you guys in chat, if you like what you've seen tonight from both these racers, please don't forget to give them a follow if you like this. Of course, our opponent here, Fayorei, is still trying to complete the seed. Was doing some pretty good job so far. Only missing Skull Woods and Misery Mire. Looking towards trying to find that those pesky 2 items that are both in Ice Palace, unfortunately.
Yeah, given that she has the hook shot, she does have the option now to go back into Ice Palace and get those items in logic. When she'll make that choice, unfortunately, sort of difficult to say. You're always really reticent to jump back into a dungeon after you've made the choice to mirror out. And of course, Swamp was green pendant, so now we're going to see her trade for that big 20 on Sasrala.
Yeah, depending on how she counted the items inside ice, she might be wondering where exactly those items are. But looking that she floated to 8 and currently in the water, I believe that's the very next location.
Yep, looks like there was a brief period of fear there where she looked like she was heading into the whirlpool, but it looks like she's making what we happen to know to be the right choice.
And
yeah, unfortunately though, still no fire rods, so she will have to use bombos to clear out the ice enemies. On the plus side, she has picked up half magic since then, so she'll be able to unlock Cold Stare with no problem, regardless of how well she manages her magic inside the dungeon itself.
Yes, and you can see a bit of a difficulty of this seed just looking on Zer0rush side here. Collection rate of 171 items in 1 hour 56 minutes for the skill level of that he showed us. That was, yeah, a pretty long seed and a bit of a trolly one on the ending here.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to think about what sort of gambles the runners might have made that would give them a slightly better time. The only thing that's really springing to mind is dipping into Swamp a little bit faster, clearing out the progression items that happen to be on the all-in non-hookshot locked locations.
Now, one thing I really, really hope is that she's not mistaken into maybe getting one item out of Ice Palace here and leaving the other one in. Getting bumped around a bit on this rolling floor. It's always it's one of the places in the seed where I really don't like. It's so easy to just bump into everything in there because of the random floor movements.
Yeah, it doesn't have a cool name like Hellway and Thief's Tower, but in a way, it's almost as difficult, especially when you've got to stop and get the key from that enemy midway through.
And look at that, we see the cool strat from Fayorei too. How about
Executing
that?
the bombs to perfection. And then, of course, our good friend Ice Momentum comes to ruin the party. Trying to use those sword clashes to control the direction that you go can be difficult at times. Oh, and unfortunately, hopefully she will come back for it, but that's one opportunity that she did have to use a minor glitch, hookshotting while pushing that block in order to get that big chest item. Oh, unless I'm completely mistaken. Does she have the big key?
No, she does not.
Okay, that's the ticket then. She is again going to execute that bomb jump perfectly.
Now, since she is missing a small key somewhere in here, she had to go the long way around to reach the other chests that are on the right side of the dungeon.
Yeah, Zer0rush getting that small key, I believe, in the first chest of the dungeon, and saving it to use on that right-hand side door key. A routing choice that can end up saving you a lot of time. I'm not 100% sure what choice Fayorei ended up making with that key.
Man, that has to be the most unluckiest room I've ever seen. Those barriers so much in the way.
Yeah, and they're really hard to hit with the hook shot, which is the one way to do it that guarantees that you won't get electrocuted. Oh, and coming back down, electing to open this chest first. Ultimately, a correct decision since that does give her the fire rod. But of course, just to be thorough, she is going to go back up and check those two chests hidden behind the hammer here.
Yeah, she got me scared there a bit. I was almost wondering if she was going for a mirror.
Oh, and we saw just a hint of this bunny for Terra in Thieves Town, but now we get a better look at it. That's kind of nice. You know, as we're going through things that we've seen before, always nice to give a little bit of a shout out to all of the people who have worked on the development for Link to the Past Randomizer, all of the ROM hackers and coders, but also the people like the sprite developers who are responsible for this great Terra sprite, all the bug testers, all the people who you see in the credits. Don't forget how much they put into this.
Indeed. Not only is there upwards of 500 people inside this tournament racing each week, trying to just make it through, but you have all these people that are giving up their time too to just offer us some great services such as restreaming and tracking for us, and of course a lot of commentators too. So yeah, a lot of good people in this community. It's probably the reason why it's grown so much across the last year.
And Fayorei low on health here. Thankfully, there are both the fairies in the drop-down area and an anti-fairy that she can hit with the powder for a little bit of boost of health before going to Cold Stare. And Fayorei getting the same amount of anger as Zer0rush experience.
Yeah, it was oh man, that location for Quake is just something else.
And sorry about that, I'm completely out of sorts. Pretty sure that Fayorei has already actually killed Cold Stare on her first pass through, and so all she really needed was those key items, the Fire Rod and Quake. And now, with those, she is in go mode as well, so she's going to hit up Woods and Mire, and then she's going to be going towards Ganon to end the game as well.
Yep, looks like she's deciding to go inside Mire first, get it out of the way. It's going to be a pretty quick dip inside, getting that big key first, and probably looking for a small key just to get towards that door. I'm not exactly sure of Fayorei's hovering skills.
Yeah, that is a rare talent, so she may have to go the long way around after getting the big key, but not too much of a time loss there, maybe 10 seconds. And with full hearts here coming into Mire, there are some pretty interesting quick strats that you can do in this room with the Whiz Robes. It seems like she is electing to instead keep Hookshot out and use that to finish off the first two Popos, but now using Sword Beams to take out the Whiz Robes in pretty short order. This is a room that can really benefit from just grinding out execution, because you can do it very quickly or you can do it a lot slower, just depending on how well acquainted you are with the random movements of the Popos, the cycles of the Whiz Robes, little teeny details like that. And she is coming up here to the big key chest first, a pretty standard drop through Misery Mire, so she will be heading towards Vitreous just as soon as she can get around there. And now, actually, I'm not 100% sure what the fastest route is. She could also choose to go from the room with the Popos and the torches right up and then get to the big key door that way. Instead, she is choosing to go left, hitting the warp that's going to take her ultimately to that same door. This one might be slightly slower, but they're ultimately about the same amount of time, I think.
Yeah, overall, it doesn't take much more time to go through this, and it gives you a assured way to go through. Now, I believe the rest of the dungeon will go pretty easily, because with silvers in hand, as you've seen earlier on Zer0rush screen, or may not have seen because it was so fast, she'll just make easy work of him.
Oh, and very heads-up play there. It's very easy if you end up going through Misery Mire in a sort of non-standard way to accidentally go on muscle memory, go up and hit that switch, and end up blocking yourself, having to go back out and redo it. Remembering that she hasn't been through that much of Misery Mire already, Fayorei does not make that mistake and doesn't have to spend the extra time.
Getting trolled a bit here by the anti-fairy. Well, looks like she's doing a bit of a fun stress for us, going with a some Master Sword spins.
Oh, but electing to switch to silvers after using the green pot there. Probably ultimately the quicker choice.
Yeah, it was probably just for a bit of swag.
And now with that 6 crystal taken care of, and the fire rod in her possession from Ice Palace, she is going to be heading up presumably to Skull Woods, going in the back half, and finishing up Mothula to get that 7th crystal. Yeah, taking a little bit of walk out of Misery Mire before using the mirror. Another real easy thing to do there, if you're not, you know, depending on the level of execution available to you, is hit just left or right once, coming out of Mire and ending up mirror bonking 2 or 3 times, trying to line yourself up with that passageway that leads you up into Desert Palace. So taking a little bit of a walk out lets you avoid that.
Now going up inside of Skull Woods here, Mothula will be her last boss to defeat before Ganon's Tower to get the final crystal. It should be a pretty easy fight overall. Half magic and fire rod will make short work of the Moth.
Yeah, and of course, as Zer0rush was saying, Mothula's pattern of movement also plays a big role into how much time he takes to defeat. If he gets caught up in there in those corners, then no matter what equipment you have, it can sometimes be really difficult to get him out of there because of the bug that he has that leads him to cancel damage if he touches one of those spikes after you've damaged him. Fayorei taking a quick peek up into the item room up there, maybe just to wave hi to the Gibdos before going on to beat Mothula.
Probably just checking if she got the item there or not. She is only on Master Sword after all, and it's not everybody that is comfortable beating Ganon with Master Sword only.
Very true, yeah. Tempered would definitely be a little bit of a speed up and a nice sort of comfort thing.
Making sure to just wait a bit here so she doesn't get grabbed while falling in the pit.
Yeah, and not even bothering with sword spins. With the half magic, there's not really much point before you've exhausted your fire rod. Yeah, and electing to use that blue potion for what unfortunately ended up just being the last hit. But that does finish off Mothula, get her the crystal, and now she's going to be ready to go up to Ganon's tower.
Indeed. Now she does have a potential here of getting very quickly up Ganon's tower by simply going on the right side instead of left side as Zer0rush did. So we could possibly see that.
That's true, and I don't recall if that first chest, obviously the second chest, going by that room first, had the big key. I don't recall if the first one had a small key. If so, that's pretty much the ideal Ganon's tower layout for getting up quickly, because you do need that one small key to be guaranteed a safe trip up the central passage without getting locked out by small key doors.
If I recall, it wasn't a small key. It was something like a big 20. But we all know that on the left side, you can get a couple of small keys pretty easy.
Yep, just to the left of that torch room, there is the one that you pick up under the pot. So, not a big time loss if you have to go pick that up.
And I think there was one also on the torch, if I recall. So there's your two small keys you kind of need.
Taking the path up Death Mountain, that does require the hook shot. So hook shotting over lifting the Nitz rock to get in here, as opposed to Zer0rush, I believe, took the straight shot up. Not a huge difference, and not really relevant either way at this stage of the game, but just kind of an interesting divergence. And the lightning strikes, the stairs come down, and we are into Ganon's tower. And now we'll get a chance to see whether she chooses to go left or right. And it does look like she is choosing right, so she's going to make out with the big key in pretty short order here. Yeah, and as you said, getting that key, but it does appear that she will be choosing to check at least this room containing 4 chests before going up. Probably, as you said, searching for a temperate sword to make that Ganon fight a little bit more comfortable.
Unfortunately, just fighting all of the small keys, getting the hint that she needs to go up the tower, and we will be most likely seeing another Master Sword Ganon fight. Of course, having silvers here will make much of a difference and much easier in the latter phase of it.
Yeah, the Master Sword is time-consuming, but the Master Sword silverless is time-consuming and at times a little bit dangerous, because you got a much higher chance of getting a Ganon hug during that stage 4, I feel. And of course, we do have to consider Zer0rush did check the single chest before Moldorm 2 But he did not check the chest after Moldorm 2, choosing instead to use the swag strats and just hover that fight. He also didn't check the 2 chests in the room with the mini Helmosaurs. So it is entirely possible, and given how much of the overworld we've seen, perhaps even likely, that we will see a Tempered Sword in one of those 3 chests that we have not yet seen.
Yep, there's a good chance of having a sword somewhere in there.
Yeah, Ganon's Tower, always one of those, and the Ganon's Tower Gauntlet in particular, very interesting place to see how execution choices play out, because so much of it is gated by these kill-all enemy rooms, and almost all the enemies in Link to the Past have some degree of randomness in their movement. And so it does, to a certain extent, ultimately come down to how well you can predict it, how well you can manipulate it, in order to get those enemies finished off. So every time you see it, even if it is something that you see in every single seed, it always goes a little bit differently each time. So nice to watch.
Indeed, especially in these rooms with all the BMOs, it makes for such horrible rooms to go through your first few times that you really need to learn how to dodge everything that's coming at you while trying to kill all these enemies.
Oh, and Fayorei also electing for the Fire Rod for the first cycle, but after missing a couple of unlucky shots here, landing 2 silver arrows, and then the third one in the next cycle to finish off Land Moles in pretty respectable time. Yeah, and it looks like electing to take the second cycle on these Wiz Robes. Getting the lineup for the Samaria block to hit 3 at once, doable with a little bit of practice. Takes a little bit more practice to get yourself lined up to hit those treadmills just right and get that 4th one in the same cycle.
Now, she does have a lot more magic than Zer0rush had at this point, so she'll be able to get all of these torches up here with no problem at all.
Yep, and in the very next room, let's see if she checks these 2 chests, looking for a sword upgrade.
He opens the left chest and...
Interesting.
Now that I think about it, I think Zer0rush did the same, as I'm being told. Yeah, pretty sure he did open up because he did get a somewhat of a health refill over at that time. Didn't matter much either in the end, but I guess we'll never know what's in that right chest.
Yep, our last hope for a sword upgrade looks like it's going to be in the chest after Moldorm 2. And unfortunately, taking a fall there. Moldorm's 2 arena is, in my opinion, a whole lot easier to fall out of than Moldorm 1's arena. All the little crags and stuff, it's very easy for both him to get in a corner and for you to get in a corner where he can just come at you with his head, and there's not a whole lot that you can do. and Moldworm is just not friendly today, just making a beeline with his head towards that terrace fright and trying as hard as he can to knock it off.
He
But it
eventually
does get
get
finished.
it. Yeah.
Oh. And the ultimate last salute from a seed that's been a tough one to get through. No tempered sword for this final Ganon fight. Instead, we just get Compass out of that final chest.
Now, Fayorei does have a couple of blue potions, so she is very well equipped for that Ganon fight that's coming up.
Yeah, some Aghanim positions early on that can be difficult. When they're not in a straight line, sometimes your only option is to kind of juke them, where you wait for the fake Aghanims to throw their projectiles, then move out of the way and try to reflect them back. Some of the least pleasant Aghanim 2 positionings to deal with. And we get a few sword slashes in time to the music here, as we wait for the bird to lift us out to that most final of fights, the Ganon fight.
Getting that cape ready, trying to use the cape's chest. She knows what she's doing. That is a good strategy to use, especially since this fight is a bit of a slog with the Master Sword.
Yeah, and again, heads up thinking, because she has those blue potions, she definitely wants to make sure that she uses up her magic and pops the cape before using them. Unfortunately here, going ahead and using that blue potion first, but still with half magic, she's going to have plenty of green bar for all of the all of the cape use that she's going to want to presumably save for second or phase 2 here. And yep, making it into phase 2 and just immediately popping that cape. This is the most dangerous one in a way, with those fire bats that can be hard to dodge. And even setting that aside, is the hardest one to get consistent damage on, since those fire bats circle around, make it hard to get a good angle, especially when you're dealing with Master Sword and having to use spin strats. So yeah, definitely agree that this is the most appropriate place to use the cape here. She is going to need to be careful, though, because without magic, she's not going to be able to light those torches and finish the 4th stage of the fight. This is, I believe, her last blue potion. I think the 3 bottles was all that she collected.
Fortunately, she is now in the 3rd phase and no longer need to use the cape. So as soon as the 4th phase demands a bit of magic to light that torch, she'll probably use a potion right away.
unfortunately missing Torch Glitch. Again, with half magic, not really going to be a problem. And depending on how Ganon lines himself up here, she may still be in position to get a couple double arrow hits. Oh, geez. Taking just a pause there, probably to stop, unfortunately, exactly what happened, which is that invisible Ganon shooting a fire bat from you from a strange angle, and that knockback doing just enough to send you off the edge.
Yeah, now she's in a position where it's going to be a bit more difficult for her to recuperate from that. She does not have a lot of money in store to buy more potions.
Yeah, and she has visited Houlihan Room, so that won't be available again for more. She does, yeah, just have enough for a green potion, which she is going to pick up. On the way back, she does have Bug Net, so she may choose to bonk that tree containing a fairy outside of Dark Pyramid, and then collect that for a little bit of extra insurance. Yeah, and one of the rare times you'll hear this, unfortunately, this wasn't an AGA 1 seed. And the unfortunate in this case comes from the fact that there isn't really a quick way back into Dark Pyramid anymore. If you've done AGA 1, you can take the portal right at the front of Hyrule Castle. If you haven't, then your only real choice is to flute to Link's house, jump down, take the wand by Hylia, and then take this long way around that Fayorei has just finished.
Oh, it does look like she's opting not to take the fairy from the tree down below. It's gonna make it a bit harder to go through this, definitely. This is, yeah, well, I'm still feeling that she's able to do this, but not
yeah,
having
she is
the-
equipping the hook shot here, and I think that's probably going to be to make use of invincibility frames without relying on the cape using magic. And so I think she does know the strategy here. She's well prepared to take it down, and it's just going to come down to will Ganon give her the patterns that she wants, and will the execution be there?
Indeed, it's gonna take a bit more time to play it a bit more safe going through this fight. But at least we're looking at towards good stress on her part.
Yeah, and starting at phase 2, unfortunately, immediately getting hit by one set of fire bats, but then using hookshot invincibility to go through the next. Oh, and walking into another one, and then I think as she was just about to use the hookshot, getting hit by those fire bats as they expand out. That's a rough death to take.
Yeah, definitely not an easy fight, being only on Master Sword. She may be looking around to either try to find a better sword or possibly farm some money somewhere to get a few more potions under her belt.
Yeah, unfortunately, having essentially Gomoed Admire, I don't believe that she has seen that red mail in Checkerboard Cave. I I'm not 100% familiar with the Terra sprite, so it's possible that she already has it, but I believe that she has missed that and is going in with blue mail.
Yeah, that is in fact a red mail that she has. The blue mail one looks like a bluer sprite from General. So
Okay.
there you see additional knowledge. Finding out that there's a bunch of fairies here. You don't really see that
Yeah,
cave very often.
I was not aware of this cave, actually. That's a really good place. If you've got a lot of bottles, this is a good place to get a lot of fairies. And she may even choose... doesn't look like it. It looks like she's maybe going to keep that green potion just to make sure that she has magic for Torch Glitch. But definitely getting full health and a little bit of insurance there. Yeah, and unfortunately, there's not really even any staircases, with the exception of the one on Pyramid. Not really any staircases here to activate spin speed from. So not really much choice when you're taking the second run, second and beyond run at the Ganon fight, other than the boots dash and just pathing as fast as you can.
Now she is a bit better equipped than last time, having a couple of fairies and a green potion. Still, she'll need to be a bit careful with her magic, having so little magic in hand. Of course, having half magic will really help out in the later phases.
Yeah, and I do think that that's why she chose to keep that green potion rather than emptying that out for another fairy, was just to make sure that she has magic for things like Cape if she wants them, and to make sure to keep those trophies.
Now, if push comes to shove and she really is out of magic, including her potion, I do believe from the beginning of the seed that we found out crabs have full magic drops on them. So if she remembers that, she could at least have a one full magic bar going into Ganon.
Very true, and for that matter, we did learn very early on from Zer0rush that the Tier 1 tree pole is full magic refill, so that's another option for a quick refill. Using the hookshot and quick stepping to get through those fire bats. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the real downside from having to use those Master Sword spins, is you've got to butt up right next to Ganon, and in this phase that means getting dangerously close to the fire bats before they become bats as they spin around him. And really that's where she's taken the majority of the damage from, in a way, the most dangerous part of the phase.
Now she will need just to play the patient game here and try to time her hookshot releases so she doesn't get hit by a later fire bat, but also try and dodge as much as possible Ganon herself, because Ganon does hit even harder than the fire bats.
Yep, and a good choice here, I think, activating the cape. Like I said before, this is, I think, one of the best locations to get quick damage on him and avoid damage yourself. That makes the cape useful here as opposed to in any other phase of the fight.
Now she is down to her last bottle, which has green potion in it, so has to make it or break it on this one.
Yep, those fire bats doing 2 hearts of damage each. Oh, and she's in the middle of the fire ring. Thankfully, still with magic left for Cape, and she's going to use that to get out of there without taking any additional damage. But down to just 1 heart now. Any damage at all is going to end this attempt. And unfortunately, those 3rd stage spinning fire bats did apply it.
That was just really, really rude. Having that fire bat hit you during the time you are stunned from Ganon slamming on the ground.
Yeah, sometimes they spawn on top of you in that phase, and it just feels like there wasn't anything that you could have done. Taking a pause there, maybe to consider her options for refilling magic. With a little bit of rupee farming, apart from all the other sources of magic that we talked about, green potion is just 60 rupees, so she may choose to farm up rupees, go back and grab another green potion before going into the fight.
Indeed. There's plenty of places where there's a few rupees you can pick up that do respawn, such as inside Kakariko Village Well or Blind's Hut, and a few more locations such as those. Or just hoping to get a random drop from an enemy too.
And it looks like she's coming down here. She does get a full magic drop. That's going to be very nice. It looks like she's coming down here to one of the better spots to farm rupees, apart from Houlihan Room, which of course she's already used. Now, she may choose to just go back in here 2 or 3 times and maybe even farm up enough rupees for a blue potion. Or she may, yeah, does look like she's going back in a second time. I think her choice might be to get a blue potion. That's a significant advantage over a fairy when it comes to health restoration. When you're facing down a tough Ganon fight, that's nice to have. Yep, and considering the number of times she's gone back in here, I'm pretty sure she may even be thinking about releasing some of those fairies to... Yep, and now she's going to flute. Almost certainly she's going to flute to 2. She's got enough for 1 blue potion and 1 green potion, I believe. Yeah, weighing her options here, maybe considering whether to recapture that fairy in place of the green potion. A lot of different choices here, how you want to do it. And she has, in the end, chose to drop that Fayorei, go back in and buy a green potion with the rubies that she has left. That is going to give her plenty of magic for use with Cape.
Now,
And unfortunately here, with our 3-hour time limit on restreams, we won't be able to have time for a post-race interview, and probably this is going to be our last shot at seeing Fayorei finish up this Ganon fight as part of the restream. She is very well stocked up, and she clearly has the execution. So, you know, everybody left in chat, give her your power, and see if we can't get a victory here in the dying hours of this, what has been a really interesting scene in a lot of ways.
starting off really strong here.
Yeah, some very close calls with that staff, but managing to avoid the majority of the damage. Yeah, and I think that's 11 hits. I think this one is the 12th. So I think we are, yep, we're entering phase 2 now. And immediately she is going to pop the cape, get as many hits as she can.
That's 3.
I think we're up to 7 now. A little bit timid there because there is always that scare factor of the cape wearing off right when you're in the middle of those fire bat rings, and you end up getting hit for quite a bit of damage. She did avoid that.
That was the right time to use the green potion. Now that she still have a few more hits that she can take with the number of hearts she has. And this is
that
it.
looks like it was the 12th hit, and we've got 1 on phase 3. Unfortunately, not quite quick enough to despawn those fire bats, but she does get the second one. Gonna pop that green potion to make sure she has enough magic for Torch Glitch. Getting the 3rd hit in phase 3 pretty quick, no fire bat there. And the 4th hit. So now it's just down to getting those silver arrows into that pig. Hitting Torch Glitch this time, that's going to make things a lot less to think about when you've got that taken care of.
Yeah, she needs to remember she has to do spins even in this phase 2.
Yep, and taking into account half magic, choosing just to use the fire rod to light that torch. That's nice because it can sometimes put Ganon in a nice position to get a double arrow hit, things like that. Oh, just missing a spin slash before he phased away there. Hitting this one, though, for what is going to be Silver Arrow. Oh, Silver Arrow 2 just bouncing off. This time, though, hitting correctly. We have 2 more to go, I believe.
Indeed, there's only 2 more hits left, but she got this. She got this.
Oh, and doing a silverless hit there. Yep, and popping that blue potion. That's going to put her in good position. All she needs is third arrow, which is coming right now, and just one more arrow. She's got to be careful here not to... Oh, jeez Louise. That is heartbreaking. Ganon just phasing in as she's trying to hit that torch. He spawns right on top of her, and there's, in that case, once he's on top of you and you've lit the torch, there's nothing that you can really do to avoid that knockback.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that happened here. That was pretty much the worst thing that could happen in this fight at that moment.
Now we're for the next race. I think they'll drag you in once they're ready to bring you in. No worries.
Okay, fantastic. So it looks like we are gonna stick with Fayorei here for just a little while longer. Hopefully long enough to see another attempt at that Ganon, get the retribution that she, by this point, so richly deserves.
Indeed, we will stick around as long as it takes for her, or as long as rather they will let us stick around to watch her and get this pig down. And
yeah, it looks like she's making the choice to go back directly to that rupee farming spot. Once you've gotten to the location, actually refarming the rupees relatively quick. And so she may just choose to farm up enough rupees to get 3 blue potions and have the maximum chances of success for that Ganon fight. Now, I believe that this is 50 rupees per entrance. She's at 79 right now after 1 entrance. Each potion is 160. So 160 times 3 is going to get us 480, if my math is correct. So that's going to require 7 or 8, I think, more re-entrances. Another thing that was not a requirement for comms was doing multiplication in your head. So fact check me on that one.
3 hours inside of commentary, I can't fact check that either. So we'll go with that and say you're probably right.
Gotta wonder what this gentleman in the yellow here is thinking. Just turning his head as he watches a Final Fantasy VI character walk down the stairs, throw some pots around, and then walk back up the stairs. And yep, as you alluded to before, making the heads-up play, taking that rock from the crab in order to get the full magic refill.
Yeah, now she'll have she'll be making her way towards the fairies inside of this cave right here and get a full magic refill.
Yeah, she did farm up exactly enough rupees for 2 blue potions. So she may be looking to get 1 fairy in a bottle and then 2 blue potions. Although she's fluting away now, so she may just be getting the blue potions and saying, that's what I'm going in with. Oh, okay, interesting choice. Taking 1 blue potion, 2 green potions. Gonna use that extra magic, presumably to power the cape during phase 2, which is the one that I think has been giving her the most trouble. Those fire bats surrounding Ganon and projecting in and out.
Indeed. Not to mention that doing some sword spins while being invisible is a bit awkward sometimes. You need really to position yourself properly, or else you'll kind of poke Ganon and lose your spin. So you really need to watch out about that too. It's by all means not an easy fight. That's why usually by that time you do find either tempered or even golden sword. They don't have that much of a trouble, even the vanilla game, having not having to find your swords, but rather visit the blacksmith to have your tempered and open up the pyramid fairy with the big bomb and throw in your sword to get a golden sword for your troubles.
Yeah, if we're talking about advantages that no major glitches runners have, being able to guarantee tempered for Ganon, definitely one of them.
Yeah, this is closer on being a low percent fight, despite having a lot of hearts. Being on Master Sword really is one challenge that you need to progress to get a good time in Rando. And now this is it. We got 2 hits in on first phase.
That trident chasing her down, but she jukes it out. Still haven't taken no damage.
Really doing a great job there.
Yeah, there would be a certain degree of satisfaction in, after all the issues that she's had, doing this iteration of the Ganon fight, taking no damage whatsoever. I'm kind of rooting for that at this point. And getting, I believe, 7 hits in on Ganon on that usage of the cape. And presumably, yep, gonna pop a green potion here and do it again.
We're up to 10 hits. 12 hits. She's pretty much done with this phase now.
Yep, and now the major thing is, making sure to use that last bottle since she did not elect to take any fairies.
Second hit of third phase is done. And now she has a really good position on him. And there we go. She's now in 4th phase.
Yep, getting Torch Glitch again, so she doesn't have that to keep in her mind.
It was very close, but she did it.
That's 1 arrow on Ganon. Oh, the second arrow on Ganon bouncing off as he warps away and the torch unlights. Again, getting one inadvertent silverless strike before hitting that second arrow.
She has 2 arrows in, only 2 left. You can do this, Fayorei. We all believe in you.
And now this is the position she was in last time, and yes, she does run up out of the way to make absolutely sure not to take that blunk from the pig warping on top of her.
Third arrow in. Now this is the where she fell down last time, so she really needs to be careful.
And he's frozen. The bow is selected. Oh, and it misses. It bounces off. And now she's got to watch her health just a little bit. She does have that green potion. She could, I believe, elect to, yeah. And that is her choice. She's going to use Cape to get that 4th hit in. Get that 4th silver arrow and kill Ganon. We have a successful completion of this really, really taxing seed. Congratulations, Fayorei. This was an effort, and you deserve every bit of that final fanfare.
GG's. Fayorei now completing this seed. It was a hard one. It was a hard one. That we can all agree on.
And I think we may go into the next game here on Speed Gaming 5 pretty quick. But one last thing before we go, just to remind you, thank both of our runners, give both of our runners a follow if you're interested, and thank everybody who's still here for sticking around to see Fayorei's moment of triumph in the end. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you to our restreamer. Thank you to our tracker. Thank you for everybody who makes this possible. And we hope to see you in future races.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And let's get right into it with another race that's starting right now.